everyone, and welcome to thorough newspaper analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. So these are the articles that we will be discussing today. Firstly, Speak to the Farmer. This is from the Indian Express and basically talks about the new developments that have been made in the agricultural sector. And we have been also discussing them at length since a lot of time. But then there are some, misconceptions that are there in the minds of farmers that the author in this article is trying to fade away. And second, Two Theatres of Peacemaking. This is from the Indian Express, and another article from the Hindu is The Cost of Peace. Basically, it talks about the peacemaking process in Afghanistan. And here in the Two Theatres of Peacemaking, we talk about, firstly, of course, the peacemaking process in Afghanistan, and secondly, in the Middle East area. So we'll be discussing them at length and what would be the possible and probable impacts or consequences on India would also be discussed. And thirdly, News and Flash, wherein we'll be discussing the crisp pointer news, more important specifically for the prelims exam. Before that, let's have a look at the LawSikho courses that we have to offer for you. Lord of the courses, that is the Judiciary Test Prep course, is one of the best-selling courses that we have at LawSikho and one of the most amazing courses that we have developed. You can have a look at it. The link is there in the description box, and there you can download for yourself free study material if you're also preparing for judicial services. Then we have various other courses also. They can be looked at the LawSikho webpage. Let's see that what is the multiple choice question for the day. Who is elected as the new deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha? First, Manoj Jha. Second, Harivansh Narayan Singh. Third, Om Birla. Or fourth, M. Venkaiah Naidu. So if you know the answer to this question, do jot it down in the comment section below. So this is the descriptive question for the day. What is APMC? We'll actually study about it in detail in today's article again, and discuss in details about the three ordinances relating to APMC and farmers with their pros and cons. So the answer to this question must be written within a word limit of 250 words and maximum 200 or 300 words. So firstly, let's start with the first article for the day, which talks about the agri or the agricultural reforms. So 3 bills on agricultural reforms were introduced in the parliament to replace the ordinances issued during lockdown. Now, as we know that ordinance is a power that the president in India has under Article 123 of the Constitution of India, and ordinance can be issued if the parliament is not in session. Now, as we know that due to the COVID pandemic, the parliament was not in session, but now since from yesterday, 14th of September, the monsoon session has begun in the parliament. So that is why now, to replace or to actually give a permanent nature to these ordinances, these 3 bills on the agricultural reforms have been introduced in the parliament. Firstly, the Farmers Produce, Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Bill. Second, the Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance Bill. And thirdly, Farm Services Bill. So these 3 bills have been introduced in the parliament, and we really are looking forward that they might be very soon, they would given the form of an act as well. But contrary to the point as to what all benefits these bills or the ordinance till date they were offering, there have been a few oppositions, or to say a few contradictions to the coming up of these bills. So let's discuss that. What are they? Firstly, coming from the farmer organizations. So basically, the bill that allows sale and purchase of crops outside APMC will end MSP based government procurement. Basically, the APMC is the Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee, and these are actually responsible for the procurement of the agricultural products that the farmer is actually producing. So basically, these APMC or the Agricultural Produce Market Committee, that we also generally know as the Anaj Mandis. So the farmers actually, they have somehow developed this misconception that now, since we know that very recently we had been discussing about the reforms that had been brought in the APMC, and specifically like if we talk about the agricultural sector. So basically now the farmers were not really restricted to sell their produce only in the APMC or the Anaj Mandis, but they could themselves contact any other kinds of producers or any kind of retailers or whoever they want to, and they can sell their prices to them. Their producers to them as well. So now APMC's monopoly was actually ended through this reform. But this is a misconception in the minds of the farmers that if they would sell or purchase their crops outside the APMC, it would actually end the minimum support price based government procurement. But That is not the case. Now, as we know, that the government actually provides the MSP or the minimum support price on some particular goods, goods as in the agricultural produce, so that the farmer can actually benefit from the selling of those agricultural produce, and he is given at least that MSP price which is set by the government. But here, if now they're allowed to sell their crops outside the Anaj Mandi or APMC, this does not at all mean that the MSP based government procurement would stop. It is only a matter of choice that now the farmer is not only just bound to sell his produce in the APMC or Anaj Mandi, rather he can himself explore new areas and new buyers for his own agricultural produce. So this is a misconception which needs to be taken away, that the MSP based government procurement would stop, which definitely is not the case. As it also says it, but under Farmer Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Ordinance, the farmers are only given an additional market channel, right? So they already have, they still have the option of selling their crops in the APMC, but still they have an additional marketing channel now. So the entry of big corporates may result in exploitation of farmers. So they think that this might happen, but if the government is keeping a good check on it, obviously this will not happen, and the farmers can definitely sell their produce at a good price to any kind of buyer who they wish to sell their goods to. Then secondly, the ordinance dismantles the monopoly of APMCs. Now, the opposition actually is coming from the people who actually are called as the commission agents or arhatiyas. Because earlier, when there was a monopoly that was prevalent through the APMCs or Anaj Mandis, these people who are commonly known as the arhatiyas or the commission agents, they actually were benefited a lot. Because obviously the farmer had no significant choice to sell his produce outside the APMC, and thus a complete monopoly was created. And these people who were the commission agents or the arhatiyas actually gained a lot through this monopoly, because obviously the farmer had no choice. But now, since the farmer will be able to, upon his own choice, would be able to sell his produce outside the APMC also, if he wishes to, these arhatiyas definitely are not at comfort, because now they are seeing that the monopoly of APMCs and their own market has been deteriorated, and now they would not be able to exploit the farmers through this monopoly. Basically, so this opposition is coming from the arhatiyas, which definitely is something we should not be entertaining, because this was something really, really bad that they were doing to the farmers, because ultimately the farmers were not getting the actual benefit that they had to gain from their produce. So this was all for this article. This simply, actually, the reason why we took up this article was to to bid off or to just fade away these misconceptions in the mind that the reader might have. So we should be clear as to what is the actual goal of these ordinances or the bills that are yet to come. Now the next one is talking about peace in Afghanistan and the Middle East. So firstly, let's see that why this topic is in news. The first direct talks between Kabul, which we know is the capital of Afghanistan, and Taliban, which we know is like India, it recognizes Taliban as a terrorist group, as a terrorist organization, and Taliban also, it is one of the most dominant terrorist groups that have been prevalent in the world till date. But now we know that lately many efforts are being made between Kabul, that is, see, one thing that needs to be understood is Kabul and Taliban both are in Afghanistan. So Kabul is like a place, it is the capital of Afghanistan, whereas Taliban is a very strong terrorist, and in a way, many times it also develops to be a political, tries to take political affluence also over there in Afghanistan. So why we are taking these as two different entities? Because Kabul is something, the administration over there is elected. So we know that the president, Ashraf Ghani, has been elected and chosen by the people. That is why we take Kabul to be as a democratic setup, whereas Taliban is a terrorist setup. That is why we are construing them to be two different entities, which they definitely are. So now the first direct talk between Kabul and Taliban insurgents began last week at Doha. So basically, as we know, that Qatar is a very small country which is there in the Middle East. It is one of the Arab countries. So it is playing a very important role in bringing this peace to the Kabul and basically to Afghanistan. So today, the leaders of the United Arab Emirates will sign a formal peace agreement with Israel at the White House. So here, two things need to be understood, that these are two different peace deals that are going on. One is related to Afghanistan and Taliban. So the peace would be tried to be drawn up between the mainstream Afghanistan and the terrorist group Taliban. And on the other side, We know we had also discussed a few days back about the issues that were going on in the Israel Palestine in the entire area. So basically the thing is that Israel is not really considered to be as a full-fledged country by many other countries. So basically it is not really recognized to be as a full-fledged nation. But lately, a few countries have given their consent to say, to recognize Israel as a full-fledged nation by itself. So here, today, the leaders of the United Arab Emirates will sign a formal peace agreement with Israel at the White House. So in a way, it is also agreeing to give the status of nation to Israel. Now let's see that what are the 5 broad trends in the current peace efforts. So whatever all the both efforts that we are talking about, what are the 5 broad things that we need to address in this? Firstly, both the peace process remain vulnerable. Because if we even talk about Kabul and Taliban, that is if we talk about Afghanistan particularly, or if we talk about the Israel or Middle East in particular sense, both of these peace processes remain quite vulnerable. Because see, if we talk about Afghanistan, the author says here that the Taliban will still stay, because see, Taliban has been something, one of those terrorist organizations that has prevailed since years. It has been decades now. So if we really are expecting that just through a few peace talks, Taliban would actually put down all its activities and agenda, that is really something very difficult to digest. So Taliban will still stay if we talk about Afghanistan. And if we talk about the Israel issue, just merely getting recognition by a few other countries to be recognized as a country, that problem doesn't solve here. The existential crisis that is there in Palestine and the other cross-border or intra-regional conflicts that are prevalent in the Middle East they still tend to remain. Secondly, Arabia's enduring importance for the subcontinent geopolitics. Now here, we must not at all put down the importance that Arabia, that Saudi Arabia and the Arabian, various other countries, and specifically if we talk about Saudi Arabia or the Arabia, it has in the subcontinents or this Middle East areas geopolitics. And firstly, for us, the most important thing is that we should focus on the oil that is supplied from this side, promoting manpower exports, because we know that a huge part of Indian diaspora, that is Indian population, stays in the Middle East and specifically in the Saudi Arabian countries or Saudi Arabia itself. And it is limiting the region's impact on India-Pakistan problem. And definitely, we know that many nations have a lot to say when it comes to the India-Pakistan issue. But India definitely does not want a lot of to say interference from the outside world to be coming in, as we know that we are a sovereign country. So India will need to develop a very intricate balance while participating in such talks. Third, paradox of American power. Now here, as we know that after the US, other countries like Russia, China and Europeans will attempt peace settlements in Afghanistan. Now as we know that after the World Trade Center, this turmoil had all occurred, the troops or the US military troops had actually found their base in the Afghanistan, and they moved to Afghanistan to control the activities of Taliban in Afghanistan. But now, as Trump also has been making significant efforts to bring peace to Afghanistan and to develop peace talks with Kabul as well as Taliban, and he wants to bring back the military troops and wants to develop peace. In such a scenario, once US troops move out of Afghanistan, definitely, at least for some period of time, this paranoid, or to say this vacuum will be created in Afghanistan, and other countries that are significant over here would like to take the advantage of this vacuum and would like to develop their own influence over there, like for example Russia, China, or even some other European nations as well. Now obviously we should understand here that if, just keep aside European countries and Russia, if China tries to develop its strategic importance in Afghanistan, it would not be a very good step for India, because already China has had huge influence on Pakistan through its infrastructural activities and loan giving, etc. Then it is also trying to develop its influence in Bangladesh, China, Nepal as well as Sri Lanka, and this would actually make it very possible and easier for China to in a way cover up India through various sides, and it will be very suffocating for India to function democratically and so with sovereignty. And if China develops this influence in Afghanistan as well, it might influence the Afghanistan politics to against India in times of crisis. So this is something that we just discussed, that US is stepping back from Afghanistan would actually create a vacuum, and China's role in partnership with Pakistan could be significant and also detrimental for India in future. Fifthly, domestic issues in most countries is increasing, because we know that even in the Middle East, when we talk about it, there are a lot of intra and inter regional religious as well as various other ethical issues that are going on, and it would not be really very good for India as a nation to step very deep into these issues, because it will be very difficult for India to come out of them without any harm. So this religious radicalism, sectarian or ethnic divisions are very prevalent, and due to the collapse of oil market, it has made it harder for the political elites over there to focus on emerging political challenges. As we know that due to the COVID-19 pandemic also, the requirement for oil or crude oil has significantly fallen in the entire world. And due to this, the economic situations in Middle East countries has also not been very sound lately. And that is why the issues or the conflict have been arising significantly. So this is a time where, we, India as a nation, should focus very keenly and very smartly on this issue. And we should make sure that we are friends with all of these powers, and yet we have our sovereignty upholded. So with this, let's discuss the news in flash. Rajya Sabha Deputy Chairman, so Janata Dal United, so the JDU's MP Harivansh has been re-elected for the second time for the post of Deputy Chairman. His name was proposed by BJP President and Party MP Jagat Prakash Nadda, who's like JP Nadda. Then the second, Yoshihide Suga to become Japan Prime Minister. So he was elected as the next Prime Minister and as a successor to outgoing leader Shinzo Abe. Now, as we know that recently Shinzo Abe has resigned from his post, keeping in mind his medical and health issues. So after him, the successor would be Yoshihide Suga. So he was actually a successor by the Liberal Democratic Party. Then International Day of Democracy today, it is celebrated on 15th September. So in 2007, the United Nations General Assembly resolved to observe 15th September as the International Day of Democracy, which definitely is a very, very important day for India as we are the largest democracy of the world. So it was done with the purpose of promoting and upholding the principles of democracy, and invited all member states and organizations to commemorate the day in an appropriate manner that contributes to the raising public awareness. Then fourthly, we have the Engineers Day today as well, which is again celebrated on 15th of September. So basically it is celebrated to commemorate the birth anniversary of M. Vishveshwaraya. So M. Vishveshwaraya was also the Diwan of Mysore from 1912 to 1980. And basically he was the chief engineer. He was himself an engineer, obviously, responsible for the construction of the Krishna Raja Sagar Dam in Mysore, as well as the chief designer of the flood protection system in the city of Hyderabad. And due to his these major contributions that he made, he was awarded as the Bharat Ratna for his endeavors. Lastly, National Commission for Homeopathy Bill and the National Commission for Indian System of Medicine Bill have been passed by the Parliament. So basically these two bills have been passed by the Parliament. And the purpose of these bills is a medical education system that improve access to quality and affordable medical education by ensuring availability of adequate and high quality homeopathy and Indian system of medicine professionals across the country. Now, since we know due to COVID-19, health infrastructure is something that we really need to focus upon. And these two bills now, they will be soon, we are hoping that they would become the acts, would be actually working in this direction as well. So this was all for today. We hope it was a good and informative session for you all. Thank you so much.